you've spent 20 years or more within the international climate change as a negotiator, and you've been right in the middle of global decisions and entering rooms with world leaders and who are debating the planet's future. And we got an interesting insight into sort of maybe global negotiations with Trump and Zelensky that was kind of played out in public, but we rarely see that. Look, what's it like? Can you take us into that space of some of the global negotiations around climate change? Like, I'm sure, you know, to excuse the pun, but they can be heated disagreements, but also sudden breakthroughs and moments of frustration. What's the dynamic like there that people don't see around the negotiations?
Yeah, so I mean, it is a fascinating insight into the geopolitics of the world. Any of these
Yeah.
kind of UN level negotiations, whether it's on climate change or something else. And I think the first time I saw that in really stark relief was back in Copenhagen in 2009, when the job that we were trying to do was to agree a successor to the Kyoto Protocol, which had imposed these kind of top down limits on carbon pollution on developed countries. And that was very interesting. So typically, you know, the US was a big player, Europe was a big player, and if they all lined up in the right way, you'd get the kind of outcome that you wanted. And this time, I remember I was part of the European delegation, and we just didn't have we were the key demanders of a successor to the Kyoto Protocol and this top-down approach, but we didn't really have enough support built up. You know, you have to build these alliances and coalitions of the willing all going in the same direction. And sometimes those alliances are created across, you know, some of the most developed and some of the least developed countries. Those I'll talk about that in a minute. That became the most powerful in Paris. But in Copenhagen, what happened was really it was a moment where those against having a top-down approach were strongest. So India and China had very strong positions against. And then the US, I'll never forget Barack Obama arriving in the building, right? So you can't miss it because everything gets shut down when the US president comes, and you know there's a whole lot of security that was never there before. And so at my level, I was negotiating in a room. We were very close to having what we needed for the element of the text that was going to be all around adapting to climate change. So how we cope with the climate change impacts that are happening. And I remember the time came for Barack Obama to come and do his big speech to the COP. And so everybody stopped. In every one of our rooms, we stopped, and we all went out into the corridors where there were TV screens beaming out the speeches from the heads of state. And he was our hope. If he came with an ambitious message, we knew we would get something out of Copenhagen. If he didn't, we were going to be in trouble. And there was something even about his body language as he stood up and he took the speech. And I was like, I don't think this guy has anything to give us. So he hadn't managed to come from the other players in America and from Congress. He hadn't come with something to say. He wasn't there to say, yes, we're going to do it. And we're going to bring this to the table. And so with every sentence that he said, that was more empty than the sentence before, the whole place just went dump, 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 dump.
The energy got sucked out.
You're like, this is going to be nothing. And so by the end of that, so we had a complete breakdown. There was no agreement. And it left there going, wow, this is interesting. America was not at the table. They were not the leaders. China, I remember for the first time, it was a real moment for China to shine. And it was like China was shaping the future of what it was going to be like to do negotiations. So when you witness those moments of literally those, you know, where one or two leaders acting differently makes all the difference. And then in Paris, you know, years later, where the EU was organized and there were strong coalitions built with the US, but also with the countries right on the front lines of climate change, that's when, again, you were able to come forward with something and know that it would get over the line. But the hard work, that's years of diplomacy to build that up, to get to that point, to get everybody going with you. And watching that change over the years is fascinating.